Happy Spiritual Sunday to all of you. Great to be back again. We'll wait a few moments, let people come on board with us. Hi, Shannon. Hope you're having a great day. Here we go. Hi, everybody. Yes, thank you. Love you also. Okay. A few more minutes. Hope you had a great week. Good morning. Good morning. Oh, Brazil. We have Hawaii. We have Brazil. Okay. Chicago. Hong Kong. Okay. So great. I'm never not amazed that we have so many people from so far reaches of the world joining us. It's I guess it's very humbling, actually. So I thank you all for joining, and thank you all for sharing these messages. And please remember, now that we figured out how to do it, go underneath the video, push share, and in the menu after share, you'll see start a watch party. I know many of you already know that, but for some of you, you're probably technically challenged like I am, although getting better, which is the key. So let's get started now. Right now that people, yes, wow, thank you. Oh, from Canada too, look at that. Okay, so I wanted to share with you a thought from Karen Berg from the book Simple Light. And she says, she really hits the nail on the head and sort of sums it up in a few sentences. Without the quality of sharing, there really isn't any existence. For existence is only for the purpose of giving to humanity. When you give to humanity, it will give back to you. We know the law of cause and effect. We know the more we give, the more we get. In fact, Kabbalistically, the word for giving is natan. And it's one of those things, I forget the name they call it, where whichever way you spell it, forwards or backwards, it's the same thing. The Kabbalists explain just what Karen shared. When we give, we're actually also receiving at the same time. And so that's why it's so important for us to keep our focus on why we came here into this world in the first place. You know, the purpose of humanity is a very simple thing. We just came here to share, period. The Creator gave us light, a soul full of light. That light filled our soul, but until we share it, until we actually emanate it and project it into the world, then it doesn't bring us fulfillment. Filled, but not fulfilled. So we're here. The purpose of the Kabbalah Center is to just teach humanity, every human being on earth, because we all have the same purpose. We may have different lives, we may do different things, we may have different talents and abilities, but the purpose for which every human being on earth is here, is present in this world, is simply to do the same thing, share. So I share through teaching Kabbalah and interacting with students, etc. I share with my family and friends. Some of you are out there in various businesses. You can share through your business. You can share when you're on the street. You can share when you go to the supermarket. The key to sharing is simply having the focused, conscious thought to emanate, to extend the light of the Creator that's in our soul out into the world. I mean, what could be simpler than that? And I think that's the beauty, actually, why Karen calls this simple light. It's just simple. The light is simple, nothing complex. Turn on the light, the darkness goes away, and it's replaced by the illumination of the light. So too spiritually, when we allow the light of our soul to be emanated into the world, it's simple. Then the darkness goes away and the light shows up in all of its with all of its blessings, with all of its goodness. Okay, I think a lot of us are here. So let's do our affirmation together to keep reminding ourselves of the truth and take away the falsehood, right? It's one or the other. We either have truth in our mind or we have falsehood in our mind. So the more that we replace the falsehoods with the truth, then the more the truth will take over not only our thoughts, but from our thoughts into our actions. So here we go. We say it all together. Wherever you are in the world, consciousness is everything. I raise my consciousness today to see the miracles and wonders of life. I commit myself to behave with greater love, compassion, and kindness towards all human beings. And that's just a reflection of what Karen said. Be more compassionate, more kind, more loving, more caring to all human beings. And all human beings, whether they realize it or not, will reflect back to us the good that we've reflected to them. Okay. So I want to start with a little story. When we were in England, I remember the first time I got on the subway there, or what they call the tube. So you're in the English tube, and all of a sudden you hear this recording, this voice from the speakers: mind the gap, mind the gap, mind the gap. And I'm wondering at first, what are they talking about? And then I came to understand, what were they talking about? Between the platform and the subway train, there was a gap. So they wanted people not to get hurt, not to fall into it, not to drop things in it, whatever it may have been. So there was this constant reminder: mind the gap, mind the gap, mind the gap. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I was new, so that's an important thing for a new person. But what about the people who've been traveling on the tube for years? They already know, they've heard for years, mind the gap, mind the gap. Why do those people, the new people we can understand, but really on a daily basis, how many brand new people are there? How many people have never ridden on the tube versus all the people who are, let's call them seasoned riders? So why do we have to remind the seasoned riders, mind the gap? And I realized, as I would like to share with you today, this is exactly what life is about. Because why do you have to remind the seasoned riders? Because all of us, in some moments of our day, we're walking around doing things unconsciously. We are just unconscious. What's in front of us, what's around us, what's going on, what's being said, whatever. We're sort of in a world of our own, and we're not minding the gap. We're not minding the gap. And so this is what I would like to talk about today, is this gap in our life, because we all have it probably many, many times in a day. We all fall into what let's call that empty space, right? And what's the empty space in our life? So I'll give you a few examples. Look back in your life, perhaps it's something current also. How do you feel when you're between relationships? You just left one relationship, you're in that empty space between that and the next relationship. How do you feel? Do you always feel happy and joyous, or do you ever feel worried? Do you ever think, will I find somebody else? Will somebody else come my way? Or also, what do you think? Maybe they were the one. Maybe they were the one and I should have stayed. Okay. How about jobs? You ever left a job? So in that empty space between one job and the next, will I find a job in this economy? Will I find a job that'll be better? How long will it take me to find this job? What if it takes me a long time and my savings and my plan runs out? Or you move homes. Are we moving? Is the move the right thing? Should we really have moved? Should we take the kids out of this school to that school, right? Is it worth it, etc.? There's all those ideas also. And of course, with children. Are they going to grow up well? Will they be successful? Will they be happy? Will they find the right people? Will they be healthy? All the stress and the worry and the concern comes in this empty space. And that's what we need to learn how to take advantage of, actually, how to make use of. Because why? That empty space where we have the fear, the worry, the darkness, the uncertainty, where we don't see the solution to things, where we can feel discouraged and hopeless, guess who's right there in the midst of that empty space? The opponent, that spiritual parasite that sits in our brain, sucking our energy, giving us limited thoughts, making us think in a limited, short-term, selfish way. That opponent is champion of the empty space. He's the champion. He will inject every kind of thought. He will use billboards to remind us we're not good enough. We're not like that person. Songs will come along, like with relationships. Oh, that was our song. Why did I leave? How come? What's going on? And then the best part in relationships, from the point of view of the opponent, after a person left, and now they haven't found somebody yet, they're in that empty space, what will the opponent do? He'll start editing the movie of that relationship, and you'll see only the good things. Why? He was so good. She did so many nice things, this and this, because all they're doing is showing the clips of the good things. What about the times there were arguments and there were disagreements and there were fights and the rest of it? No, that he doesn't show. Because again, the opponent is there to get our energy. He's got to influence us to be limited, to do reactive things, selfish things, fearful things, act in sad ways, etc. Because just like any other parasite, it can only live on the energy of its host. So it's there always trying to get energy from us. So what's our work then? Our work is to beat the opponent with light, because the opponent is anti-light. We're filled with the light. Our job is to share the light. Let's just share the light. Let's not allow ourselves to continue to give in to all this negativity, right? To have the doubts, the fears, and the worries. So our work is to cross through the empty space to the other side, like a mountain, right? We want to create a bridge to the other side, from where we are, from the one job to a better job, from the one relationship to a better relationship, from seeing the kids in one level to having them in a higher level, to have a nicer home, to have nicer things. That's what the purpose of the empty space really is. It's really there for us to be able to cross it and get to a higher level. But that empty space is scary. Like we just said, fear, hopelessness, confusion, doubt, worry, it all sits only in that empty space. But as you and I are learning Kabbalah, our job is to see the empty space not as empty. How many times do we remind ourselves? How big is the light? The light is infinite. Infinite means, whether we call it the upper world or this world, there is no space, there is no place, there is no person, there is no situation that the infinite light of the Creator, of goodness, blessings, beneficence, solutions, there's no place that light doesn't exist. So then when we feel, or we've called this an empty space, this empty space between situations in life, it is not empty. It is only empty to our perception, but it's not empty. The light fills it. And therefore, Kabbalistically, from our point of view, that empty space actually is a bridge to a higher level of consciousness. That empty space is actually a bridge to a higher level of consciousness, to a greater, more fulfilling existence. I want that to sink in. What we call the empty space, where we're in doubt, fear, worry, wondering what's going to be, what's going to happen, in any way, between relationships, jobs, situations, even now, we're between, right? We're in the empty space. Came the COVID, we have the empty space of isolation. What's going to be? When are they going to let us out? How are we going to exist? What will it look like, et cetera, et cetera. So every time there's an empty space, and of course we can break it down into times during the day. Not sure what I'm going to do next. Not sure whether this is going to work out. So it's not only big things, it's also in little things. There's constantly empty space. Why? Because what's the empty space really from our point of view, from our tikkun or our correction point of view? That's where our light is hiding. The light that we haven't revealed. The light of the 100% that the Creator gave us that is still covered up with all those negative emotions, the fear, the anger, the greed, the jealousy, the ego, the insecurity, etc. That's why it looks like an empty space. That's what makes it, from our point of view, seem so scary. But if we could really see the bridge, the solid, strong bridge between one place to the next, we wouldn't have that same fear. We would just get on the bridge and walk across, because we see on the other side, there's great blessings. Think about the journey of the children of Israel. They're in Egypt. And as you and I have talked about many, many times, what the Kabbalists teach is they weren't in slavery and bondage of being beaten and tormented and tortured, not like we usually think about. What was their torment and torture? They had too much. They were enslaved to luxury. So they had the cars, the houses, the big businesses, etc., but they were so caught up that the physical materiality was their source of fulfillment, that became their slavery. They couldn't live without that car. They couldn't live without that job. They couldn't be away from work for a day because maybe a competitor, maybe one of their salespeople in the office would take their clients or get the next sale. Or if they didn't work hard enough in their own business, one of their competitors in the profession will take their job. Whatever it would be, that was their slavery. That's our slavery. Somehow or some way, we are also enslaved and in bondage to something in the physical material world. So what happened? The light, because it loves us and cares for us and wants us to be on the other side of that empty space, wants us to be, as the Bible says, in the promised land. What did it do? It helped push us out of Egypt with the 10 plagues, the miracles, etc. And then, did it just take us right from Egypt and slavery and bondage right into the promised land? No, there was also an empty space. In biblical terms, and if you're new and you're watching this for the first time or seeing us for the first time, the Bible, we believe Kabbalistically, did happen physically. It is a historical record, and we believe those people existed. But what the Kabbalists give us through the Zohar is the technology that those people used to create those miracles, to do those things, so that you and I today, in 2020, will understand the technology, the system of how the universe works. So those people, you and I, because it's all of us, we were enslaved to the physicality. Then something came along. Either you want to say, in our terms, we gave it up. People leave a job. People leave a home. People leave things in their life thinking that they can get better. But either way, we left Egypt. The light, because it cares and loves us, pushed us out because it wanted us to have the 100%. It wanted us to have lasting fulfillment. So it pushed us out. But for 40 years, which is a spiritual dimension of this empty space, this gap, for 40 years, we wandered through the desert. Now, we can go through and spend hours and hours discussing that, but the essence of it is we learned many lessons. We were in that empty space, that desert, to be able to understand more where we were caught in our physicality, in our materiality, where we were caught in our greed, our insecurity, our fears, our anger, our sadness, our discouragement, our sense of hopelessness, etc. That's why we were there, to develop ourselves spiritually during those 40 years with the guidance of Moses and Aaron and all the leaders that were there, to be able to reach the promised land, to walk that bridge of that desert to get to the other side. So the empty space is the very bridge we're looking for to get to the other side. But it means seeing with our spiritual eyes. It means seeing beyond what our five senses tell us. Right? We want to use that empty space to transform ourselves and then get to that other side, which is an improved life, which is a better life. Now, we can't do that if we don't change. And some people, they're so scared of that empty space. Once they get in it, they will go back, so to speak, to the old life. They'll go back to the old situation. Maybe they'll try and get their job back. Maybe they'll go back to the same relationship. Maybe they'll go back to the same old, because they might have ventured out a little bit and then realized, they let the opponent beat them. The fear, the doubt, the worries, the uncertainty, and they went back. And they went back. Well, you and I have learned enough. It's not going to last very long, because there's a constant push from the universe, from our soul, because our soul filled with light that loves us, knows our 100%, knows we can achieve it, knows that the Creator already gave it to us. So it's constantly pushing us. It's like we're standing on this precipice. We can't quite see the bridge because it's hidden from our five senses. We know it's there. All we see is the darkness. And so there's a push, a push, a push. And sometimes we get more scared and more scared and more scared. You and I, who are learning in the Kabbalah Center, it's the opposite. We're learning the wisdom that's allowing us to see and understand how to change ourselves, how to extract the light, how to make that bridge visible so it's easier for us to cross. But we have to do the work. We have to take the time and make the effort in this moment, in this gap, to decide, wait a second, remind ourselves, who are we? We are pure and perfect beings of light. We are filled with the light of the Creator. Our job is simply to emanate the light. We all know the law of cause and effect. More light we emanate out into the world, more light comes back. So if up to that moment we hit that bridge or that empty space, we've seen some development, we've seen ourselves change, we've had some transformation, and now we're standing again on that precipice, and we're still seeing the empty space, but we can perceive in some way or another on the other side of that bridge, there's greater blessings, greater happiness. All of us, every one of us sitting here today, every one of us watching together today, we all have in our heart of hearts a greater sense of something better in life, some higher level. We know we have more potential than we're achieving right now. We know it. We may have the empty space with all the negativity there that tries to hold us back. Because remember, that's the job of the opponent. His job, by his name, to oppose. We want to cross the bridge because, of course, we want a better life. Of course, we feel it inside. We want to see it in the physicality, heaven on earth. That's the manifestation of all our light. So, of course, we want to get there. His job is to oppose us by making us think we see an empty space. You know what? God doesn't really care about me. Maybe the Bible is right in its literal form. God punishes, God rewards, God has jealousy. No, you and I know that's not true. We know that the Creator is just pure light, and that light is only goodness and wants us to have only good things in our life. So there's another example in the Bible that helps us see the gap and beginning to give us the antidote or the way to make the bridge show up and walk the bridge to the other side. And it's called Shemitah. Shemitah means the sabbatical year, right? If you read it in the book, towards the end of the book of Leviticus, it tells us as we're about to go into the land of Israel, the promised land it's called, as you and I are about to find that better job or that better relationship or have better health or, see the children grow up, whatever is that greater sense of fulfillment, as we're about to be there, what does the Creator say? It says, when you go into this promised land and you're planting seeds and harvesting, every seventh year you're going to leave the field fallow. You're not going to harvest. And then you're going to wait, and then you're going to plant, and then you've got to wait another year to let the food grow, right, before you can eat of it. So there's your empty space. Now, the Kabbalists explain from the next part of what the Bible says, here comes our work. Here comes our work in the empty space. So they say, and if you ask, because imagine, some people, they're thinking, well, if we don't plant seeds and we don't harvest in these years, what's going to be? And some people had absolute certainty. If this was the technology of creation, if this was the way of the light, then everything has to work out. Because the light is infinite, the light is all good, the light is the source of all our supply. In this physical world, all physical good things come from the light. Everything. So our health, peace, love, prosperity, protection, seeing the right situation, having the right solutions, etc., all those blessings only come from the light. The light is the source of everything. Everything. So there were the people who asked, well, what are we going to eat? What are we going to eat? Okay, we're willing to leave the field fallow because the Creator told us. But then comes that next gap. What are we going to eat? So then the Bible says, okay, then God says, don't worry, I'll bring you blessing. I'll give you blessing. Then you have, remember, the other people who didn't have that doubt, who didn't have that uncertainty. So the Kabbalists explain, and many of the great Kabbalists have commentaries sharing with us, there's two aspects to this. There's the true miracles of the light. Now there's those people who were certain with the light, who just went with the light, who had trust in the light, who didn't even have the thought, or in our case, didn't see the empty space. They just got on the bridge and they crossed it. And it was miraculous, what we would truly call miracles, things that for us are supernatural. But then there's the blessings, or if you will, the miracles that the Kabbalists explain are more like natural miracles. And so the people who asked the question, well, what will we eat? They were still willing to do the Shemitah, leave the field fallow. They were willing to let the poor come and take from whatever was there. So there was an aspect, there was a part they were willing to share. There was a part they were willing to let go of. But then there was the other part, which obviously was the influence of the opponent. Well, what's going to be? And so for those people, the universe manifested what we call a natural miracle. For example, maybe the food they had became so nourishing that instead of having, 3 meals a day, let's say, they could eat 1 meal and be satisfied for a whole day. So therefore, whatever they had lasted 2 or 3 or 4 times as long, so they could get through the time. Now, both are somewhat miraculous, and all of us, if you look around, look in your past. Have you ever been in one of those places where you see the empty gap? You see that empty space. You're on the precipice and you see the empty space. Somehow, if you look back 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years and you had one of those, well, you and I are sitting here today. So obviously, somehow, relative to the physical miracle or the physical existence, you survived. You came through it, something happened, you pushed yourself, whatever it may have been. But we would have to say, relative to our lesson today, it was on the same side. It was from the same side. It really wasn't crossing the empty space to the other side. It may have added some power and some energy to be able to cross the next time, that next bridge. But in that moment, it wasn't necessarily a transformation, a true spiritual inner transformation. And I'll give you 2 examples. I had a conversation with one of the students, and we have many students who are watching right now from Hong Kong. So I had a conversation with one of the students in Hong Kong who happened to bring up, and I don't believe in coincidences. We don't believe things just happen randomly. So I knew when I heard it, I had to share it because it fit right with this bridge gap idea. So she's telling me along the way, that a number of months ago before this COVID, there was the protest. There were people protesting in Hong Kong against the Hong Kong government and against the Chinese government. They wanted, their form of government, whatever it was, but there were protests. Then came COVID and everybody went inside and it was very strict, et cetera, et cetera. And she's telling me now that they're letting people out, she says, people are going back to the protests. So I realized those are the people that in essence, they got to the precipice. There was that empty space. There was that opportunity to walk the bridge of transformation to a higher level, to take this time where people were isolated, and many of us still being isolated, to look inside, where are my mistakes? Where are my misdeeds? Where am I giving into the 1%, the physical materiality? Where am I letting that control me? Where am I not going outside myself to share transformationally? Where am I looking back and I say, oh yeah, that nasty person did that thing, and still feel nasty, still feel angry or upset? No, our work in that time is to be able to say, no, I want to send them light. I want to forgive them for what they did because I want to cross the bridge. Remember, it's not about them. Nothing outside of us determines we walk on the bridge or not. Consciousness is everything. So when I decide I want to cross the bridge, then the way to make the empty space or that darkness show up as a bridge is when I'm willing to forgive, send light of forgiveness to the person who did me wrong, apologize to the people I hurt, give, help, share in transformational ways, in ways and levels that I haven't done before. That's how I cross the bridge. Like we'd say, imagine in a physicality. You're standing on that precipice, you have a little bit of fear, trepidation. I don't know. It's scary. I'm not sure what could be, etc. And then you push through because something pushes you. Suddenly get that burst of certainty, trust. The light shows up and shows you that bridge. And now you make the effort to cross it. So you faced your fears. You broke through that barrier. Holding resentment and animosity is a barrier, keeping you off the bridge and in the emptiness, jealousy, insecurity, etc. Those are all blockages. They keep us on the same side. So in essence, what she was telling me, as people started, they were protesting, they had one consciousness, they were looking outside of themselves for the fulfillment. If everybody else changed or the government changed, then they'd be happy. History doesn't prove that out, but okay, that's what they thought in the moment. Now they were forced into isolation, and it's like they were just on hold. Now it's over, then they're going back to the same thing. So they really didn't cross the bridge. They didn't get to a higher level. They're staying the same. Same old, same old, same old. And of course, the opponent will mix it around a little bit so you can't quite make it out so clearly. It'll look a little different. It'll be this way in whatever form. So it's not so easy to see that we just stayed on that side. That's his trick. That's his trick, to not make us think we didn't do something. Look, how many times we look back and we see, I had fear, I did things for them, I should apologize, but I don't want to, I should forgive, but I don't want to, etc. But we still kind of manage to survive. But we're not here just to survive. We're not here to survive this world. We're here to thrive. We're here to expand our consciousness. We're here to change not only our life, but by changing our life, the life of the world. Change humanity, because as we often talk about, we are only one. There's really only one of us. We're just in 7.5 billion sets of clothing, let's say, but we're still only one. We're still only one. Then I have another student who, a couple years back, he was working for his father in a financial business, and they were doing really well. Well, the father wanted to retire, so it was either sell the business or the son would take it over. So the son's thinking, okay, it's a nice business, he's doing well. And the father says, okay, let's negotiate the contract, how he's going to buy him out and this, that, and the other thing. Well, now there's an empty space between the son in the business, right, on this side, so to speak, everything going well, it's fine, making nice money, et cetera, et cetera. Now comes the empty space, that gap. His father's going to leave, and it's going to be his business. And of course, his vision of that promised land is thriving. His vision on the other side, that it thrives and grows and he does really well. But now there's the opponent comes in this space, in this gap. Will you make it? Can you make the payments, right? Will you be successful without your father's backing, because your father was in this business for whatever, 20, 30, 40 years already. He knows people, they trust him, et cetera, and you're kind of newer at this. So he had all the doubts, all the fears and all the confusion. But because he was a student in the center, he understood what to do. And not only did he understand what to do, but he did it. He consistently was scanning his Zohar, learning the lessons, giving donations, helping out, using the tools and the wisdom that he had learned in the center to cross that bridge. Yes, step at a time, step at a time, step at a time. Well, now, about 3 years later, he's thriving. Learned that his business is doing really, really well. He's so happy, his family is happy, etc. Because he was willing to bridge that gap. He was willing to do the work. He was willing to transform himself and therefore get from the one side to the other. And that's what it takes. You cannot stay the same and expect to go to the higher level. You stay the same, you get the same. Yes, again, the opponent will mix it around so it'll look a little bit different. How? Person will they'll leave one job, they'll be in that empty space, they'll worry, fear, anxiety, stress, etc. But they'll find another job. And then for a while, the opponent will make that job look, oh, it's great. Isn't it nice you got this job? Maybe it's a little closer to home. Maybe you're making a little more money, whatever it might be. But because they didn't actually cross the bridge to a higher level of consciousness, then the consciousness was the same. that consciousness of lack and limitation. So even though they found another job, there's still going to be the sensation in their life, in their mind, of lack. The job might be nice, but, right? It might be okay, but. And again, the empty gap, because why? They didn't cross it. They didn't go to the other side. So the opponent, of course, will give people, new people in their relationships, new things in life, new cars, new houses, whatever it might be, but it's still of the same level of consciousness. The consciousness didn't grow because the person didn't take the time to stop and share in an uncomfortable way outside themselves, to be willing to face somebody and apologize for something they did to them. That's difficult, of course, and especially the opponent will put in, why should you have to, right? It's okay, they did this to you once and you did this, all the justification and rationalization. Or when it comes to forgiving somebody, the same thing. Why do you want to forgive them? Don't forgive them, they'll think you're weak. Don't forgive them, they'll come back and do it again. All the reasons why not. Meanwhile, you, the individual, stays on this side of that gap, doesn't get to the higher level. Our job is to share uncomfortably and let miracles take place. And I want to share with you a story. I hope all of you either have or will soon get a set of Zohar. And just as a quick reminder, you can go on kabbalah.com. We have a program now. We're continuing to collect donations so we can give away over 16,000 Zohars for those who have financial difficulty right now. Because the Zohar is such a powerful tool, we all know, is the pure, endless light of the Creator. And will bring that light into this world through us. So the more we break our blockages, the more, as we're saying today, we bridge that gap and walk across that bridge to the other side. The more we transform, the better off, not only for us, but if you get to the other side by making your transformation, then you're shining more light for all the rest of us. In the same way, right, everybody else who's bridging that gap and making the effort to share transformationally, they're also shining more light for the rest of us. So there's a nice story, and I'm not going to read it all, but I just want you to know it's in the section of Bahar, called Bahar, and the section is called Charity Saves from Death. And basically it's a story about these two students of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the author of the Zohar, these people with very, very high consciousness and able to perceive these workings, the machinations of the workings of the laws of the universe, and can see people. Like you and I, sometimes you get a sense of somebody who's going down the wrong path or the right path, and you can almost see their future, right? Because we all have the ability to do that. We're just not completely unblocked like these people were. So they're walking through like a desert area, a wilderness, and they see from a distance these two people walking, and a third man comes upon them. And they can hear the third man ask these two travelers, ask them for food. He's been traveling, he's hungry, he hasn't eaten for days, and he's asking them for a piece of bread. So one of the two men offers him his food. And his friend that he was traveling with says, don't give him, if you give him that, then for the rest of the journey, you're not going to have food, right? And I can't share with you from mine because I have a limited just enough to get through this journey. But he does it anyway. That's what we call selfless sharing. That's what the Kabbalists say bring miracles, and will help us not only manifest this bridge, to see the light through the darkness, but also have the strength to beat the opponent and cross that bridge. So the rest of the story goes, as they're journeying, as they continue their journey, and the poor man went away. So they're going, and the one who gave away his food, he starts to feel a little tired. So he wants to sit and rest, and his friend moves on. He says, okay, I'll see you later. He's just going to keep going. So as he rests, he falls asleep. And as he falls asleep, it says that a poisonous snake was coming towards him to kill him. And the commentary from the students of Rabbi Shimon, and remember, this is a spiritual scenario. It's not just taking place physically. So the students say, maybe we should go help him. They say, no, the Creator gave him an opportunity to share transformationally. Miracles have to happen. And so it says, as this poisonous snake was coming to him, another snake came along, killed the poisonous snake, right, and then ran off. So he woke up and he continued his journey. So what does it mean for you and I? There are moments in our life when we're under the effect, the cause and effect, when we're under what's called judgment from some negative action we've done in the past. It's coming now to be collected in one way or another. Difficulty in health, relationship, peace of mind, business, etc. Whatever it may be, there's a form of judgment, meaning the effect, not judging from the creator, but an effect that comes back. And so by giving, in this case, as he gave selflessly of his food because of the need of the other person, then the miracle, his judgment was taken away because he was on the way to die anyway. The universe supplied him the opportunity to give selflessly to that hungry man that encountered them so that he could break the judgment, like we would say, he could remove or transform that empty space of darkness into light where he could see the bridge. And the bridge took him to the higher level. So his judgment was transformed from death to life in his case. For you and I, whatever it may be, the judgment of darkness, when we share selflessly, when we share transformationally, when we share in uncomfortable ways, what does it do? It allows more of our light to shine, and that light takes away the darkness of the judgment. So here we are in this space. We're all in this space called COVID. It's our opportunity now to take the time, introspect. How can we transform? Who can we forgive? What can I share? How can I have more trust and certainty that the Creator did fill us with infinite light? We are pure and perfect beings of light. We need to awaken every day a greater sense of appreciation, of value to that light that's in our soul and the awareness. So there's nothing that we've done in our life that cannot be transformed from darkness to light. There's nothing. It's just fight your opponent. That's our only enemy, is the opponent in our own head. And if you fight yours and you beat yours by sharing transformationally, then that opponent is weaker for all of us. When we all transform, then we're weakening the opponent for every person on earth. Less influence of the negative, more influence of the positive. So I want to leave you with this idea. The Zohar says in the portion of Naso, and if you want to look it up, it's verse 90 in the Ra'im and Hemna section. He says the Zohar is the only way, the power of the Zohar, the energy that channels through the Zohar, because it is the tree of life, is the way we will leave exile, this empty space, this darkness, this chaos and confusion with mercy. What does it really mean? Like we're talking about today. The exile is that empty space. The exile is the chaos and confusion, the extent that we are not in the promised land, where there is not heaven on earth, where we can still see chaos, negativity, fighting, disease, hatred, violence, etc. That's the exile. And it says the Zohar is the way we will leave the exile with mercy. How do we do that? Changing ourselves, transform, forgive, apologize, share in ways and levels to people in situations that you haven't done before, that you have felt like, no, I don't want to. No, that's not where I'm going. No, that's not what I want to do. When we share in those ways, holding the consciousness of the light, voluntarily transforming, not blaming others, but just sharing the light with others. So then, as the Zohar says, the darkest of night is just before the dawn. We, my friends, we need to make in our consciousness, this time we're in and what the world's going through, this needs to be for us, the darkest of night, so that as we're sharing, we're scanning our Zohar, we're sharing the Zohar, we're supporting the Zohar project, we're sharing with other people and revealing our light, then we are taking the darkest of night of this time now, and we are transforming it into the light of heaven on earth. God bless. So thank you for joining us. Most of you know this is the time that we bless our offering, and I do want to make sure that I thank you all, many of you who've been very generous in giving donations to the center to support us. I just put a link up. Let's see, I can put it on now. For those, those who would like to share. Okay. There it is. Okay. Thank you for being so generous. We were able to raise a lot of money for spreading the Zohar, but until there's peace on earth, there's more Zohar to go. So thank you for those of you also sharing the videos, putting the watch parties, sharing the videos afterwards, etc. And by the way, someone did tell me, when you do a watch party, then that video, this video, will stay posted, I guess, for some time on your Facebook page. So it still gives people, even after the fact, to be able to watch us. So I want to thank you for that. And let's take our moment to bless our offering. All right, all of us get something from these lessons. And so it's just a show of our appreciation to give back, to pay it forward, that others will have access. Also, if you know people who are having difficulty but want to learn, I know there's a free month on kabbalah.com. And all of you, many of you I know are already members on kabbalah.com, but if you're not, go on and either sign up for the community membership, or if you are struggling, so then you can apply for 1 month free, right, for that scholarship and see what there is. And hopefully in the month, you'll be able to join fully, all right? Those of you who are members who are capable, so you can dedicate this giving. You can go on the Spiritual Sunday website, and as you check out, there's a little box on the side if you want to dedicate this donation, whether to a loved one, in memory of somebody, to help somebody who's going through difficulty, or in this case, for the scholarship for kabbalah.com or for the Zohar project. You can dedicate it that way. So let's take our moment just to meditate, to be thankful for everything the Creator has given us, to be thankful to be able to have found the Kabbalah Center and these teachings that are transforming our lives and the lives of thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people around the world. Appreciating all that the Creator has given us in the ways of talents and abilities, to be able to have what we have, and to be able to channel light through that and use them for the sake of the light. So we inject light and love and blessings into this offering. Giving it with our whole heart, to spread light out into the world, to all the rest of the parts of our soul, which are in the bodies of 7.5 billion people on the planet. And knowing as we give, as we share, it comes back to us in many ways, many, many times over. And together we say, Amen. So again, I thank you all from all over the world for joining us, from the far north to the south, to the far east, to the far west, and have a marvelous week. Next week, on Sunday, is the new moon of Gemini. So we'll probably do something a little special for that. So have a great week. Please share with others. Please bridge that gap. Help all of us. If you and I and everybody else is bridging that gap, then we're setting the way, clearing the path for everybody else to be able to do the same. God bless, lots of love and blessings, and lots of light, and we'll see you next week.